If you're a video editor trying to make this a full-time job, this is going to be one of the most important videos you will ever watch. Because I'll go through everything in this video. I'll show you how to talk to clients, how to persuade them, how to actually apply for a job, and I'm even going to show you the entire behind-the-scenes process of this animation.
Protected against 4 different strains, 2 influenza A, like H1N1 and H3N2.
So my promise to you is that if you watch this whole video, you will have an understanding of what a full-time video editor does to actually land his clients. I'm not going to hide anything from you. I'm going to give you all my secrets because the competition is so bad. So let's get started. If you're interested in seeing all of the behind the scenes, then I encourage you to check out the Bootcamp in the link down below. Right, so the first thing I did is actually find the job application. Guys, you can use anything for this, man. You can use Reddit, you can use Twitter, Upwork, Fiverr. You could even just go ahead and do cold outreach. But look, this is the gig I found, right? $200 to $500. And the reason he agreed to the highest price point with me is because of my extensive portfolio and of my testimonials. I mean, guys, I literally have 16 verified clients, so it's much easier for me to land the initial trial. But don't let this discourage you, man. I started with zero. I started working for free, working for very cheap, just to build these case studies and testimonials up. So if you're at the stage, just work for free, man. You have literally nothing to lose. Either way, this doesn't matter. The only difference that having all these testimonials and case study does is it allows you to get the first step into the door, right? It doesn't land me the client at all. The client still, to this date, believe me, this doesn't go away. They still want a trial. And if you give someone the offer, let's say, I'm going to make your first video completely for free, just give them as much value as possible. Then first of all, you have some work. Second of all, you have a testimonial because you can always ask them for a testimonial even if they don't pay you for another video. And third of all, you got experience. But no matter what phase you are in, always ask for testimonials. I always do, and I mean, like, it's just handy if you want to pause on screen. It's just handy to have these kind of testimonials on your page. Again, it just proves that you are a good editor, that people do trust you, and that you're not just faking this. Right, so before applying, what I actually done is I basically done a deep dive into what it is that he's actually looking for. These were his 3 reference videos, and to be honest, typically references don't mean much when someone doesn't know anything about editing, because these 3 videos are completely different from each other and they don't relate that much. And so my guess is that this client just wants a high quality video. He doesn't really want these specific animations or this specific thing, because if he did, he'd probably let me know. But my guess is he just wants a high quality edit. Again, don't be afraid of being the specialist. You are the video editor. You know better than your clients most of the time, or at least you should. But I'm not saying that for you to go in with a big head and a big ego, because you're going to learn from every single one of your clients as well. That's the beauty of it. And that's why if you have like this experience with all these different clients, eventually you just kind of know what works. Obviously, we want to take a look at this. I mean, this is really easy editing. B-roll, 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 some talking heads, some B-roll, text on screen, highlights. There's genuinely nothing special about this edit. Let's take a look at the second one. Less B-roll, but this guy uses much higher quality animations. So that's what I mean. These 2 videos didn't have much in common. And let's just take a look at the third video. So this is a reaction video. So this is someone on the right, I'm guessing reaction content on the left. Yeah, all 3 completely different style videos, so we don't have much direction to go off. All right, but look, what would sound better? Your references are shit, they don't align with each other, this doesn't make any sense. Or, hey man, I've experience working with many creators such as the ones that you have in your reference. Here's a video that I've edited that has over 1 million views in the same style that you are actually looking for. If you like what you see, let's get in touch and let's work on a trial together. Feel free to check out my portfolio for more videos and take a look at my profile to see my testimonials so you know I'm legit. Obviously the second one, right? So I have 0 complaints. Even if you had no reference videos, I don't care. But okay, we've sent out the applications, so later I'm going to come back when he replies and I'll go over how to actually communicate with the client during the trial phase. I'll show you the most important questions that you should ask. I'll show you how to follow up with them, how to keep the conversation professional. And usually I'm super happy during this trial phase, but you know what makes me really sad? It makes me really sad that I know 97% of you guys are not subscribed. It takes 2 seconds, bro. Just drop a sub down below. And now let's move on to the next stage of the video, which is talking to the actual client. So firstly, you're going to have to find a job. I found this job application looking for a top 1% editor. So even though I could have just went with getting some easy clients that I'd definitely land, this guy is looking for the best of the best editors. Now he's just looking for talking head videos, science, education / health content, 4 to 10 minutes long. All right, interesting. Now what I love about this is that he said he's going to take care of the rough cut, which is nice, and then he shared some examples. So now notice that I'm treating this like an email. It's not always the case, depends who you're talking to, but over here I'm talking to a doctor, so it might just sound disrespectful if I'm like, you know, what's up bro? It just makes more sense to say, hey doctor, or hello Dr. Knock. But just understand that it's not necessarily like a copy and paste script that you have to follow. I'm trying to give you the mindset that I use for each client, right? So for example, if this was someone my age, I would say, what's up bro? Because it just makes more sense, right? Like I'm not going to be like, hey mister, you get the point. Right, so going through the message now, obviously I said, hey, thank you for getting back to me. And then since one of his questions was about my rate, the first thing I did is tell him my typical rate for these kind of videos. But one thing you'll find as a video editor is it's so difficult to find a price point for a video because there's so many variables that are not accounted for. How long is the video? How many animations? How consistent are you going to be? There's so many variables for these types of videos. So even if they give you a reference and they say, I want a video like this, maybe their video has 4 cameras instead of 1, 6 different mics, and it's 4 hours in length pre-trim, whereas the video I edited here was already trimmed, you know, like there's so many variables. So you need to kind of explain this to clients. That's why I didn't give him a hard limit. I gave him a typical per project rate depending on factors. Now, he also mentioned that these videos will be trimmed down, so I also included that. I said, given the fact that the videos will be trimmed down and taken into consideration the consistency, because that is very, very important. You always want to drop the price down if someone's going to be consistent with you. I would be happy to work at a rate of $500 per project, so aka $2,000 per month. And so then he basically agreed to do a trial, but during this process, he had a few questions for me, like, where do I upload footage? So that gave me the impression that he just doesn't have much experience in sending over videos to a video editor. So I made sure to reassure him and let him know, you're in good hands, bro. Upload it to Google Drive, and then, just so you know, we're going to upload it to a different website called Frame.io where we can do revisions a lot more seamlessly. I did this for 2 reasons. One, obviously I just wanted to help him out and let him know what to actually do because he asked me the question, but 2, I wanted to let him know and give him the impression that he's working with a professional. There's so many amateurs in this space, because believe me when I say that the money in video editing isn't just editing for YouTubers, it's editing for businesses that are trying to do organic YouTube, right? So as I said, you got to understand who you're dealing with. You got to kind of appeal to that demographic a bit more. So how do you do that? Well, I'll show you. Firstly, by sending out emails, and I made sure to specify for the trial we can use mail, because later I will try to move him towards a better platform, maybe Discord, maybe Slack, who knows, but just I don't like using emails as a form of communication. I do with some of my clients, but it is what it is. We went over all the basics, turnover time, budget, all that kind of stuff, and so then he sent me over the video project, and one thing I want you to pay attention to is how fast I respond. He sent it over at 17:49, and at 17:56 he had a response. Especially at the very, very beginning, this is super important to reply as fast as humanly possible to these clients. This might sound super obvious, and so I thought, until I actually started working with editors who are actually good at editing, but the amount of time they take to respond is just ridiculous. It's really not that difficult to like download Discord, download Slack on your phone, so that even when you're away from your computer you get notifications. And how many things a day are you doing where you have zero access to your phone? There's basically no other reason than sleep as to why you shouldn't reply to a message in under 2 hours. Anyway, one thing I have learned, and this goes out for anyone who's not a beginner editor, charge half upfront for your trials, because at a certain point it's just not even worth for you to do free trials anymore, right? Because as an editor, you know how many clients actually reach out to you, so the trial therefore is one of those videos already, right? And especially for this video, because this is a full video, this isn't just a 1-minute trial. So we agreed to do a paid trial, but since I've never been in contact with him before, he's never been in contact with me, a very fair exchange to do for a trial like this is to pay half up front. And so I asked him if he's okay with paying half up front. He said yes. Throughout the video I will also jump back to these messages and show you how I continue communicating with the client whilst the trial is going on. Becoming a full-time video editor is all about just having some work ethic to learn the skill, being humble enough to let others teach you, and just having some basic problem solving abilities. The most important thing you need to focus on is the actual skill of editing. There might be 20 other editors that got to this point, but now is the moment that is going to set aside every single other editor and the editor that lands the client. Editing is also a competition. Only one person will be able to land this client, and that's going to be me. I'll show you. So now it's time to move on to the next part of the video, which is the actual trial itself. If you're interested in seeing all of the behind the scenes, then I encourage you to check out the MM Bootcamp in the link down below. In there, you'll actually find all the assets and presets I used to actually land this trial. If I land them, I mean, we don't know yet, but you'll also have an opportunity to get clients directly from me and my agency so that you can start your editing journey right away. Again, link down below if you're interested. But now let's move on to the trial of the actual video. Right, so now we are moving on to this effect, which the client specifically wanted in the edit. So I'm going to play a clip now just so that you can see what it is before any editing.
For the last decade or so, flu vaccines in the United States were quadrivalent, meaning they protected against 4 different strains: 2 influenza A, like H1N1 and H3N2, and 2 influenza B, B Victoria and B Yamagata, the one that's now missing. Right, so it's pretty straightforward, but what I like to sometimes do is hop onto Miro and kind of plan it out. So what I'm thinking is some sort of a vaccine, I guess, and then obviously the different flus. And the goal here isn't for this to be such a professional drawing. The goal here is just to kind of give me some ideas, right? Because I noticed that most people struggle with ideas the most. Even the editors that know how to edit very well, know what they're doing, their creativity is what's blocking them, right? Like they know what to do, but they just aren't creative enough to do something cool, right? So that's why I'm going to try help you guys with some cool ideas. So, okay, you got to keep in mind what the clip is about that we're trying to animate. He's saying this vaccine protects against 4 different types of viruses. Firstly, I'm going to lay out the most important information, the different flu viruses and the vaccine, right? The next order of importance is showing that the vaccine protects against these viruses. So off the top of my head, something that protects is a shield, right? So I'm thinking maybe some sort of shield around here. Or now that I'm drawing this, maybe 4 different shields and some sort of like a muscular arm holding the shield which the vaccine is holding. Obviously the drawing is not the best. This looks
This looks like some legs or whatever, but you get the point, right? 4 different shields protecting against these viruses that might start attacking it, right? This is already a good idea to play around with, right? You have a lot of different moving parts. You have a lot of compositing to do. You can play around with 3D. You can do so many different things with this already. But now we at least kind of know what we're doing, know what assets we're looking for. We just know what to prepare for. But okay, this is the first piece of the puzzle, right? Just actually getting the idea. Again, like I already mentioned in this course, it's like sharpening the axe before you swing for the tree, right? It's important to do the pre-production before you actually get into the actual labor or the work, right? So I guess the first step into actually doing the work, but a step that's still sort of in the pre-production stage, is actually finding all these assets, right? So first of all, the virus icon, I think that this can just be a simple icon. So if you are in the Emma Bootcamp, all of the links to all the different websites I use for assets are in this section in the classroom in Astonishing Assets. One of the websites there is FreePick, so I'm going to try find like a nice icon for a virus using this website. Alright, so I found this icon. This one is animated. So I do recommend investing in websites like FreePick, for example, where you can download these custom animated icons. You can save yourself a bunch of time. But I think it'll be cooler if we just remake this from scratch. So let's do that. The first thing we're going to do is let's just copy the white solid from one of the old projects so we have our background. And let's take this as some sort of inspiration, right? So I'm going to position it kind of in a corner so that we can just see it at all times. So first of all, we want to go up here to the icon ellipse tool, click and hold and press shift so that it stays a circle. As you can see though, the anchor point is slightly off the center, so we're going to want to fix that. Go to anchor point mover. If you don't have this, I believe it comes with Animation Composer, so download that. But go to anchor point mover and just click on center so it's centered. Next thing, I want to make sure that it's in the center, so let's position it right in the center just like that. Just hold command or control and it'll snap into position. Now it is perfectly centered. Okay, so then I will add a slight stroke like it is on the example, something like this. Okay, so then I can add the rectangle tool, something kind of like this. Let's position that roughly like this. And let us remove the stroke and position it behind this. Alright, so then we can draw a rounded rectangle, but make sure you click on this shape and then click on rounded rectangle. I'll show you why in just a second. But now we can draw a slight rectangle over here. Make sure it's centered, something like this. Let's just touch it up a little bit. Maybe move it down a little bit so it's touching this at all times. And okay, that looks pretty nice. The reason we want to make sure it's attached to the same shape layer is because if we now move one, they move together, right? So we won't need to animate 2 separate shapes just for this. But okay, let's touch it up slightly. Obviously, this is a bit too fat, so let's just slim it down a little bit, and I think that looks good. Now obviously he has like another 7 of these, so rather than doing them manually, let me show you a fast way to do this. Firstly, let's enable the proportional grid and move the anchor point into the center. Then it's as simple as clicking Command D, duplicating it, opening them all up, and when you rotate it, you can see because we have our anchor point in the center and because we aligned the circle to the exact center, all we have to do is just change the rotation so that we can duplicate it a bunch of times. But that is what we're going to do. However, just before we do that, don't get ahead of yourself. We want to animate this just like it's animated over here. And the best way to do that is going to be through the use of scale. Now, obviously, if we add the scale like this, it doesn't look as nice. However, if we uncheck this over here, we can work with just one of the proportions, meaning we can kind of slightly change this around. So let's do that. Let's click the keyframe at the very start, fast forward about a second or so, and let's bring it down to, I want to say 90 maybe. Then go to another second and Control C, Control V. Sequence is ready. So now we have all of these ready to go. One last thing, let's just easy ease them all. Let's see what this looks like without any other editing.
For the last decade or so, flu vaccines in the United States were quadrivalent.
I think that looks good. Now, what we can do is, of course, duplicate this a bunch of times. So we need basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. We need 7 more of these. So let's just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now select them all. Click R on your keyboard. So we could do this randomly, or we can ask ChatGPT to divide 360, because obviously 360 degrees in a circle, by 8. So what's 360 divided by 8? I'm using old preview for this, Jesus. So 45. That's kind of easy, right? So if it's 45, then obviously we do 45 on this one. Then we do 45 plus 45, which is 90. Okay, I actually need my calculator for this. Okay, then we do 90 plus 45, which is 135, and 315. So now they're all equally divided and they all have this same exact scale in, scale out animation. I kind of like the way that they're all moving in and out at the same pace. We could change this pretty easily, but I don't think I want it, to be honest. But I'm going to keep it as is. So next up, we're going to try to duplicate some of these circles that are in here. So let's make a circle, change it to white. Let's open up its position and scale. And I think I'm just going to base everything off the 1 second mark. So I'll go down here for 1 second, and then at 2 seconds, it'll come back here. I'm going to actually double it up. So it'll take 4 seconds to get to there and 2 seconds to get to here. And when all that's done, we can of course easy ease and see what this looks like. It looks a bit boring, so let's open up the graph editor, select all of our keyframes, and let's give them all a bit more speed in the middle, so that way it looks kind of like this, which looks way nicer. Awesome, so what we can do now is simply duplicate it, add the transform effect onto it, and now we just change the position of it using transform. Let's see what it looks like. So it goes this way, so let's go position up, left, so now it goes like this. And again, let's offset it a little bit so that they're going at slightly different times. It looks good to me. And again, let's just duplicate it. However, this time we're going to change the scale to make it a bit smaller. Transform effect again. So I'm just going to position it like, let's say up here somewhere. I'll also want to make it a little bit smaller. And let's add the position here. And then I'm just going to play around with the positions ever so slightly. And I think that's good. Okay, so what we're going to do is, again, just copy these keyframes and paste them every second. Nice, so let's see what this looks like. This looks good. I'm just going to add simply one more, and then I'm going to position it down here, and I'm just going to offset it by a little bit. I think now it looks good to go. Awesome, that looks good to go. It's not the same as this one, of course, but I like the way it looks. So now what we can then do is select all of these, and let's right click and pre-compose, and just call this red virus. Then click on it, click P on your keyboard, hold Shift S on your keyboard, and we can kind of position it where we want now. So let's just put it over here and let's see what that looks like. I think that looks pretty good. We can now close this. So firstly, we're going to add like a little bit of a wiggle to this. So options, click on P, and let's open up ChatGPT and say, I need an After Effects expression for a slight wiggle on position. It is then going to generate me an expression. Now obviously that looks pretty easy, but I just want to show you to use ChatGPT, man. You have the whole explanation to do all these expressions. You've literally step by step how to apply, where to apply, etc, etc. But we can just copy this, go into here, paste wiggle, and you can see now we have a slight wiggle on our virus. We can customize if you want. So what I'm actually going to do is change this to 15, so it just goes a little bit further. And that looks good. So now we can duplicate this 3 times, because obviously we need 3 more of these viruses, and we're going to position them all around the subject, which is going to be a vaccine. If you're wondering what I'm doing with this, by the way, it's called FX Console. It basically allows you to hold control and click space rather than looking for the effects tab and dragging on an effect. You can select layer, hold control, click space, boom, you have FX Console. This is something, of course, we teach in Bootcamp, along with a bunch of other time-saving tricks that are just as beneficial, if not more beneficial than this. But anyway, what we want to do is go to change to color and apply this effect, right? Now, we simply go and pick whip the red we are currently using. And the second color, we can choose whatever you want. So let's just say we want a blue one. We can select blue. So I'm going to do one green one. And then to make my life easier, I'm just going to copy the change color effect, paste it onto both of these, and just change one to blue, maybe one to orange. All right, so now we have 4 different viruses. Let's kind of just position them in the corners. And let's see, let's try to add a glow onto this. I'd highly recommend you get deep glow too, by the way. I'm noticing something that I might want changed. I might want to change this black stroke in the middle. So obviously if these were all separate entities, we would need to do that for every single one. But since we composed one and just duplicated it, what's good is that we can simply go on this, select the main circle that I want changed, and remove the stroke, or maybe even change it to red. Let's pick whip it, change it to red so the scale stays the same. And now all of them get their stroke removed. So now what we can do is select the effect we just applied, which is the glow, copy it, paste it onto other ones, and now we have 4 different viruses that are ready to attack the vaccine. And now if I just play this ever so slightly, you can see they look pretty good. And so now we need to find an asset that will kind of match this whole theme. Because going back to our reference over here, this is our aim, right? We have the first piece of the puzzle, which is these viruses. We have made them ourselves in After Effects, as you can see. The next piece of the puzzle is the vaccine. Obviously, we could also recreate this. That is an option. But before I recreate something from scratch, I like to look around if there is any nice assets. If not, that's fine. We'll just recreate it. It's no problem. Okay, so my hunt for an asset wasn't good, so I guess we're just going to recreate it from scratch, right? No problem. Let's start off by getting the body of the vaccine. Something like this, and make sure that there's a stroke. So this will be the body. Now again, as always, we want to make sure that it's positioned exactly in the center. Okay, that looks good. Now what we can do is draw some more rectangles. And this time there'll be one going up like this, and the rest something like this. Okay, so then this rectangle, we are simply going to duplicate it a few times, just like so. Select them all, and with them all selected, you can just click on one of these, hold shift, and just drag it down a bit. Then unselect one so that it stays in the same position. Click, hold shift, drag it down a bit, and do this same process for the rest of them. Okay, now one more thing I'm going to do. I'm probably just going to select all of them and move them all slightly down like so. Awesome, that looks good. Right, so now let's create the sort of bottom stem. So again, same things we've done for the top, just go to the bottom and let's create something like this. Let's just move it down a little bit. So now we have the stem, see the proportion. That looks good. And one more time, we can create something like this. And now we have a rectangle. Cool. Right, so I am going to position the 2 of these underneath all of the other rectangles, just in case I decide later that I want to, for some reason, push the vaccine in. Maybe to create some sort of an animation with the fluid that we could add inside of the vaccine. I don't know. But it's just easier to do it now and forget about it then come back to it later. But right, now we have the base of the vaccine drawn. So all that's left in the assets stage is adding some arms, I guess, and adding a shield. Right, so I just literally typed in muscular arms PNG. I found this and I clicked onto the website so that we can get more inspiration because I don't think a real life arm will work for this. Because if you open this up, this is all like icons right now and just straight lines. Adding like a real life muscular arm is just not going to work for this. So if we do want to make it work, we need to use some sort of an icon, so we will do that. So back on free pick, I'm going to type in muscular arm and see if there's anything interesting. So okay, I think I found a good asset. And there we go, that looks kind of nice now. Awesome. And if we position this behind, yeah, that's going to be nice. So yeah, that looks nice. Now we just need to find a shield. Maybe this one here, that looks okay. Now the question is, do we go with no stroke or do we add a stroke? Because obviously everything we're currently using has a stroke apart from the virus. Do you want a straight bow? So then if we paste this here, we have the 2 options. See, now that I have this like in front of me in After Effects, it just looks much nicer with the stroke. So we can remove this and just use this one. And then of course position it in a way where it looks like it's actually blocking the virus. That's good. Now let's just duplicate the arms. Now what we can do for these is open up the scale, unlink them, and from 100 let's just change these to -100, so that way they are now flipped. And we can of course just position them on the other side. Same thing with this. Let's just position this where it needs to be positioned, and I think we're going to want to position this a little bit lower. Yeah, I think something like this. Okay, let's just move the viruses back a little bit so we can see what this actually looks like now. Alright, and this looks pretty good right now. That's why it's important. You don't jump straight into the effects and animating. You first set up your project. Now, I have been recording, but it took me 1 hour to think of an idea, download all the assets, and organize everything. And so far, all we have is this. The only thing I have animated right now is the actual virus, but everything is ready to go. This is going to be a much easier process now for me to just go in, animate the arms, add some additional touches, and make this effect stand out. And you see now most of what I've done is very simple. I'm keeping it very simple. It's just you need to actually put in the work in. This isn't some super hard, crazy effect. This is just simple stuff right now. But in a second, we are going to bring this to life and touch it all up together so that it's nice and fluid. Just before we do that, one thing I am going to do is create a null and attach everything but the background to this, because now I can just kind of zoom everything out a little bit so we have more space. And then I can just position these viruses a little bit further apart. And now everything just has a little bit more breathing room so we can actually get into some of the effects now. So now that we have all the assets in place, let's kind of plan this out a little more. Let's listen to the clip and see what we can come up with.
For the last decade or so, flu vaccines in the United States were quadrivalent, meaning they protected against the one that's now missing.
Okay, so real quick, I am going to swap this virus with this virus because he mentions B. Yamagata last. And so now, to fully animate this, what I can first do is start pre-composing the shield to the arm. Call this one top right. And I'm going to do the same for every other one. Okay, then we can position them under the vaccine. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is hide all of these arms with the shields. So I'm going to change them all to 0 so that they're all hidden away. And I'll only bring them to 100 scale somewhere around here when he mentions that they protect. But okay, for now they're hidden. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move each of these viruses just slightly off of the frame because we don't need them right now. And now we're left with just the vaccine. So let's take a rectangle, a brand new one, and let's draw a rectangle inside of the rectangle in the vaccine basically. Then what we can do is add a wave warp effect. And then if we select the shape layer and select this tool over here, we will create a mask basically inside of the vaccine, right? Now we select the shape layer, click on darken, and now we have fluid inside of the vaccine. And final touch, we are simply going to drag this lasso and parent it to the vaccine. So now when we move the vaccine, the fluid moves with it. And okay, so now we're going to open up P, S, and R. And what I will do is start setting up the positions of all these. So I want this to be the position when all the viruses come in. So I'm going to select the keyframes and move them somewhere in the 4-second mark because I remember that's when the viruses come in. But for this position, I want to put it here. And to take it off screen, I think it would be best to bring it in at like a slight angle, something like this. And then we can simply easy ease all them, play around with the keyframes a little bit. Let's see what this looks
For
like.
the last decade or so, flu vaccines in the United States were quadrivalent, meaning they protected against vaccines in the United States were quadrivalent.
Okay, looks good. The one thing I will do is leave a little pause in the middle here. So it should
For the last decade or so, flu vaccines in the United States were quadrivalent, meaning they protected against 4 different meaning they protect.
Okay, so I'll make this a bit quicker. And one thing I'm noticing is these come out a little bit late, so I'm going to move them back ever so slightly. Then I will also easy ease them and add a little bit of speed towards the middle.
They protected against 4 different.
Awesome, so already we have some sort of animation.
Meaning they protected against.
But what I think would look nicer is if the arms come out basically at the same time that the vaccine comes in, kind of give it like some sort of cause to the effect, right? The vaccine pushes in and the arms kind of push out. I'm just going to try time this a little bit better with the graph editor. So I'm going to go back into the vaccine over here, open up the position, and go to the graph editor. And now if I just move this back a bit, zoom in, basically move this really far back and this really far forward.
Meaning they protected against.
So that looks good. And now if I go and open up all of these, the scale property, and if I select them, go to graph editor and basically do the opposite. So if you imagine, I kind of want to connect the 2 tips together so that it looks like one fast speed graph rather than 2 separate ones. If you imagine that we just basically flip this, mirror this on the other side, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to match the 2 graph editors. So the first graph editor is going up like this, so then it's natural for this to go down like this. What this means is that in the video, it will reflect and it will look like they're synchronizing, right? They're part of the same motion, which is kind of the goal here. So I'm going to move this up a lot. And let's see what this looks
Meaning
like.
they protected against 4.
Already, that looks a lot better.
Meaning they protected against 4 different.
It just feels a lot more natural when you're watching this now, and you don't notice a sudden stop and a sudden expand. It just looks like it's part of the same thing. Okay, so now we're going to take it a bit further. We're going to open up one of the arms, click on the shield, and I'm going to have to try slightly play around with the rotation. So I basically told ChatGPT I need an After Effects expression to loop a rotation from -32 to -46. I'm just going to copy this, alt click, paste it into here, and now we should have a looping expression for the shield. And we can change everything, right? We can change the speed, so I want this a bit slower, so 0.5. Let's see. That looks good. So now I'm just going to copy this and basically do the same thing for all of the other shields, right? So now let's go bottom right, open up the shield property rotation, and now I see -20. So first of all, we need to see what kind of positions I want to change. So I want it to be from -20 to -2. So let's paste this in and change these values to -20 and then to -2. Same speed. That looks really nice. Let's just see the difference already, right? So the right side
meaning
has
they
this
protected
expression.
against 4 different strains,
The left side
2
doesn't.
influenza A, like H1N1, and
Just a very small detail, but one thing I am noticing is that this kind of goes slightly too much to the right. So I'm going to change that to, rather than 32, be 35. See if that still pokes out. Okay, the problem is I can't move it too much to that side at all. So if I do want to protect it, I need to go backwards, I guess. So I guess we'll do 57. So we'll move backwards rather than forwards. And there we go, the hand is now looking nice. So let's paste the same expression on the left. So again, ChatGPT gave me the exact expression, but I just need to know the values, right? I told it the values so that it's just faster, right? And so now I know that this value over here is saying -23, right? So that's going to be one of the values. And then the next one is going to be -2. So just remember that. Then hold Options or Alt and click on the stopwatch, paste in your command. And then, if you remember, I already forgot to be honest, but one of them was -2, and one of them I think was -22. So let's see what this looks like.
A, like H1N1 and H3N2, and 2
And that looks good. The only problem though is that it mimics the one on the right too much. So I'm going to kind of slightly move it to the right. So I'm going to do 22 and 2. So basically the same thing but without the minuses, so it should be opposite.
like H1N1 and H3N2.
And that's right. And since we're going opposite on the bottom, I might as well go opposite on the top. So let's open up top right, and let's copy this. And now all we got to do is just go top left, and this is why you always name your positions as well, guys. It's just easier to work with, right? So open up top left, again, open up the rotation, paste that in, and just remove the minuses, and now it's going to be opposite from the other one. And let's see what we have so far.
For the last decade or so, flu vaccines in the United States were quadrivalent, meaning they protected against 4 different strains, 2 influenza A, like H1N1 and H3N2.
Awesome. This looks pretty good. So now what I will do is finish up the beginning.
Last decade or so, flu vaccines in the United States were
And what I want to do here is add text saying quadrivalent. Now guys, I'm going to double check if this is spelled right, because obviously I'm not sure. And it is not. So you should check, especially for big words like this, if they're spelled correctly. That's how you actually spell it. Right, so now I'm going to do the same color as this, because if you remember, this is kind of the blue theme that we're going with throughout this whole video. So I'm sticking with it. And I am going to add a little effect onto this. Again, for stuff like this, just use Animation Composer to save yourself a bunch of time. I'm going to just add a nice quick fade effect to this. Make it a lot quicker, so then when he says it...
United States were quadrivalent, meaning they protected against...
Okay, then I'm going to go Options bracket to remove it, and I am going to add an animation out as well, with the same one I suppose. And I'm going to try time it roughly something like this, right? So at this moment it fully stops. So let's see what this looks like now.
The United States were quadrivalent, meaning they protected against...
Looks okay. The problem is I do not like the way it touches the vaccine. So there's a few ways we can fix that. I think by going back a little bit, that'll fix it. Just going back a few frames. That fixes it. And let's see what this looks like.
In the United States were quadrivalent, meaning they protected against 4 different strains, 2 influenza A, like H1N1.
Yeah, that looks good now. Now all we gotta do is add a drop shadow or glow. Let's try the drop shadow first. Or you know what? Instead of a drop shadow, let's just add a stroke like we have for all of the icons to match the theme. So let's select the text, go up here to stroke, and let's try and match it a little bit to the icon on the left. I'm typically not a fan of strokes because I think they look a bit ugly, but in this context, I think it might work. So let's see what it looks like.
in the United States were quadrivalent, meaning they protected against
Awesome, so that looks good. Now what we can do
States-
is open up the arms and see where the scale finishes. So this is where we want the viruses to come in and bounce. What do I mean by that? I'll show you. Open up all the virus properties, position scale, and set keyframes for them. Move forward a little bit, and then let us bring them in one by one. And let's have them touch the shield ever so slightly.
protected against 4 different strains, 2 influenza
A, like H1N1 and H3N2.
That looks pretty good. Now we can just add an easy ease to that. Okay.
protected against 4 different strains, 2 influenza A, like H1N1 and H3N2.
Okay, and I was going to do something completely different, but again, you think of ideas on the spot, right? I just thought of a great idea to just leave it like this. I was going to move these viruses down and then have text above it, but I like the way that the shields are moving, the viruses are kind of moving, it looks like there's a little battle going on, and I can just add the text to the left, no problem. So now he says
2 influenza A.
2 influenza A. So what we're going to do is do new text and do influenza A. So we're going to select the text, and I think this one should be without a stroke and just with some simple black fill like this.
4 different strains.
And again, let's just add an animation to the start of this, make it a lot quicker.
2 influenza A, like H1.
Okay, now we duplicate it, and then we just change the colors of the text to the color of the associated virus.
A, like H1N1 and H3N. Like H1N1 and H3N2, H3N2,
And H3N2. H3N2. Okay, now influenza B, I'm just simply going to keep the same vertical position and just move the horizontal and type influenza B. And same thing again, duplicate one of the names of these, and let's move this one over here. We'll call this one, or maybe we'll go down here, because for some reason I want the B Yamagata red, because if you remember previously we had B Yamagata red in the graph over here. By the way, if you want to see the entire process of me making this video, such as this infographic you're seeing on screen, the whole entire process, which is currently 6 hours long, is going to be in the MM Bootcamp, link down below. And keep in mind, that's just one of the courses I have in the MM Bootcamp. There's also a complete beginner's guide to Premiere Pro. You have all of my assets, presets, and everything that took me so long to gather. It is genuinely by far the best place to go if you're a video editor. And if you're enjoying this video, please drop a like and leave a comment down below with some feedback. But anyway, what we are now here to do is finish up this current animation. So we're going to change the colors of this, duplicate it, put it up here. And this one's called B Victoria. And this one, we all know, B Yamagata. Okay, one thing I am going to do, I am simply going to copy the glow from one of the viruses, and I'm just going to paste it on all of the text, apart from the influenza text. It looks like a bit too much on the green one, so I'm going to turn it down a little bit. I'm actually just going to turn it down a lot, not all of them. So now let's see what this looks like.
4 different strains, 2 influenza
Influenza A, like H1N1 and H3N.
And again, guys, this is nothing crazy, I know. So what you need to learn as a video editor isn't necessarily crazy animation skills. It's more so the thinking behind every effect that you do. What assets do you use? How consistent you are with your style? How do you convey the message on screen? And essentially the fundamentals of video editing. You know, how do you trim the video? How do you fix the audio? That's by far way more important than the crazy animations that you're trying to replicate and you're wondering why you're not landing clients. Because when you're applying for a trial, you do some crazy animation, but then your trimming is shit, your colors are all over the place, your ideas are really bad, your communication sucks, you're unprofessional, you have no portfolio. Like, bro, what do you expect, man? Stop focusing so hard on these super complex animations. That's literally the cherry on top. If you want to beat 80% of video editors, you need to focus on the fundamentals first. Because trust me, everyone skips over that. They go and jump into these animations to try to do the fun part, and they never land any clients. And that's the true reality, man. And so if you've been paying attention, none of this is super complex. This is all straightforward stuff. You know, shapes, keyframes, positions, which is why I focus so heavy on the fundamentals in the MM Bootcamp. Because I'm trying to teach you how to think as a video editor. I'm not trying to give you like an Imagazi style edit for you to just replicate and copy, right? It's far more important you know how to actually approach these edits yourself. But to finish off this edit, I'm just probably going to add 2 simple arrows, tie it all in together, going from influenza A to one of these. So for example, here. And again, I'm just going to use Animation Composer because there's no need for me to recreate my own arrows from scratch when I can just steal one of these bad boys, right? And I like this one, so let's add this one. You know what? It's our gradient. So after we added the gradient, we're going to firstly position it where we want it to be. So I want it somewhere like this. And I basically want these to finish at the same time, right? So this starts, and then it touches. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, and now what I will do is I will extend the arrow and also just drag away the animation out so that it stays on screen for the whole thing. And I know it's looking a little bit overcrowded right now, so if that is a problem, I will change that. But we'll continue for now. Let's open up our gradient again, and now we can add a start of the gradient. So we'll click on this little tool over here, and let's start the gradient right here, and then we can end it where the arrow actually ends. So as you can see, it goes from black to green, which sort of, I don't know, it kind of just includes this element a lot nicer, right? Because the color of the text of Influenza A just doesn't really fit that well. But adding this arrow with the gradient just kind of smooths the transition from the harsh black color we have here to the bright green one. And we're simply going to do the same thing for all of the other text, right? So again, we just position it where we want this to start. And if you remember earlier, my little trick of unlinking the scale and adding a minus, we can flip it really easily. Then I can just rotate it into position. Nice. And again, I'm going to start the gradient here, end it here, and change the color to the same orange. So now we have two different ones. And now we can see what I mean with the gradient, giving that kind of a smooth transition. But we're not done there, we just need two more. So let's add two more. All right, now we added all of the lines. The only thing I want to do real quick is move the viruses above the shield. So let's do that real quick. Viruses, and then those are shields. And again, let's rewatch the animation and see if there's anything we need to change.
For the last decade or so, flu vaccines in the United States were quadrivalent, meaning they protected against 4 different strains, 2 influenza A, like H1N1 and H3N2, and 2 influenza B, B Victoria and B Yamagata, the one that's now missing.
That looks really good. Super clean, nothing overly complicated. The information is presented very well. And honestly, I don't think it needs anything else. And keep in mind that I'm still trying to hit a deadline for this video, so I'm not trying to spend 10 hours on a 10-second animation because we don't have time for that. We still have the intro to do, we still have all the sound effects to add, and we still need to tidy everything up. But all that will be in the MM Bootcamp if you are interested in more. As mentioned, there's probably going to be about 10 hours of recording just from this video alone, where I go over the entire process of the trial and not just one effect. So if you found this valuable, you might as well check it out, because I spent thousands of dollars on courses, and everything I learned from those courses I included in this, plus much, much more. And as you've seen, I was using ChatGPT for expressions, but there's so many ways that you need to incorporate AI into your editing work. And trust me, I am very up to date with the current AI tools and how to actually use them for the work that we're doing. So you can just join, watch a bunch of videos, and literally save hundreds of hours by going through the AI section in the MM Bootcamp. And so we are now at the end of the week, and as you can see, by the payment, we have landed the client. This client wants 1 video a week, paying $500 per video, meaning $2,000 a month from just one client. Now, the big question, did I land the client? We'll get to that very shortly, but what I wanted to mention is that just before I sent the video, I made sure to keep him updated with the progress of the video. It's just one very important tip you need to know if you are doing these longer trials for clients. But then I ran into a little issue with him about what music to use for the video. I suggested Epidemic music, but I also gave him 3 options for what we can do with the music moving forward. And I rendered the video with Epidemic sound so that I can show him what it'll actually look like if he decides to go with Epidemic sound. This way it was a simple yes or no for him. Do you want Epidemic sound? Yes or no? Here's what it looks like. He doesn't have to ask me. He doesn't have to go do research himself. It's a very seamless process. He just comes, watches the video, says yes, done. And that's what you want to do for your clients. Make it a very seamless process. Give him as many options as possible, because the next email was me simply sending over the project to him. I didn't wait till he gives me an answer with the music. I wanted to just send him the video. And also, he told me that he paid me, but I didn't have any proof. So in this case, I would typically add a watermark, but given the reputation of the client and given our communication, I figured I'll just send him over the video. Why not? No watermark. Just to start off on a good foot. If he scams me, that would have been on me. But for most of you guys, if you are experienced, feel free to attach a watermark, especially if you're sending over a longer, higher paying video, so that you don't get scammed. So 24 hours went by after I sent out this email, and I still haven't heard back from him. Bear in mind, this was a weekday, not a weekend, so he was likely still at home. He likely maybe seen the video. I don't know. That was my assumption. But I did receive the payment for the video, so I thought this is a perfect opportunity to follow up with him. And that's what I did. I just wanted to confirm with him that I did receive the payment, because in the previous email, I mentioned that I didn't. And at the end, I just asked him what did he think of it. And that same day, he responded saying that he was busy, hence delayed reply, and he'll try to get back to me as soon as possible. I replied within 2 minutes. As you can see, it was 10 p.m. for me, but that doesn't matter. I have emails open, notifications on. I got the email, replied instantly. And I think because of that, because of the fact that I replied so fast, he took the time out of his family time to sit down and suggest some comments. And as you can see, he also said he loved the work and is very happy with how it turned out. And then I sent him over V2 with the suggested revisions. He has now sent over payment for the video, is happy with the edit, and we will likely continue working forward from this day on. And so, as mentioned a bunch of different times in this video, if you really are serious about turning editing into your full-time income, just join the MMA Bootcamp. And if you found any value in this video, drop a like on it, comment down below with some feedback you have, and subscribe if you want to see more. I wish you a very productive week, and I hope to see you in the MMA Bootcamp.